Dear friends, thank you very much for your choice to spend this Friday evening with Ukraine Global Faculty. We are grateful about it. And today it's a great pleasure for me to introduce you our special speaker and an American professor and digital communications expert with 20 years of experience growing the reach of the world's most innovative institutions, Professor Raymond Allen Lutzky. Ray Lutzky is Vice President, University Partnerships at Academic Partnerships, a leading AD tech company helping institutions increase student access to top quality, affordable, and workforce-relevant education delivered online. Professor Lutzky is also held enrollment management leadership roles at top US universities, where he oversaw undergraduate and graduate admissions, global student recruitment, financial aid, and marketing communications. Professor Lutzky is an accomplished public speaker and has lectured at education events across the Americas, Asia, and Europe. Ray, I would like to express our gratitude for your joining to Ukraine Global Faculty, for your contribution to Ukrainians. It's really important for us nowadays, and we really appreciate it. Today, you have a chance to listen about the power of persuasive technology and tools which you can use to create your own persuasive digital content. And of course, during the lecture, you can type your questions in our Q&A chat, and please do it in English. And after the lecture, Ray will choose the most curious and answer them. And now my warmest welcome for Ray Lutzky. Enjoy the lecture and be inquisitive. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. I appreciate the warm introduction, and welcome to everyone who has joined us from across Ukraine. I am deeply appreciative of your time and your situation. Just to add to Olga's introduction, something important, while I was doing global recruitment for a number of universities, I had the pleasure of visiting Ukraine and getting to experience Kyiv and Dnipro. And my grandmother was actually born in Ukraine. So I have a lot of connections to you all, and I am wishing you all a safe and warm day today. But let me go to the presentation to get us right into things. Delighted to share with you this presentation entitled Creating Persuasive Digital Moments, Influence, Information, and Social Media. As Olga said, I am an adjunct lecturer at the University of Southern California. I bring you greetings from Los Angeles, California, and I work in the digital social media and digital media management programs, where graduate students learn about social media content, persuasion, and technology. That's what we're here to talk about tonight. I recognize that this is a difficult time for all of you. Some of you are probably not in the best of circumstances while you're watching this lecture. Nevertheless, I'd like you to try to think about happier times. If you can, I'd like you to pause and think about happiness. Think about a memory, a memorable experience you've had that was very positive. Hold that thought in your mind. Why do we remember certain experiences and forget others? Why was that the experience that came to mind? Well, we tend to forget a lot of things. We tend to forget or ignore the length of an experience after the fact. We do tend to pay attention, though, to the peaks and valleys, the top and worst moments during an experience. And we pay a lot of attention to the endings of things, the end of a career, the end of an experience at a workplace. These moments define us, and we are defined by them through our emotional response. All of these peaks, all of these valleys make us feel a certain way, and that is why we remember them. Thinking in terms of moments is critical to understanding what we're talking about today. We gravitate towards these landmarks in our lives, special things we can call moments, and there are three main types. The first is transitions. Transitions are marked by promotions, or the first day of school, or the end of a significant project. Milestones, on the other hand, are commemorated, such as retirement or years of service at a company. And finally, pits. These are the worst times. These are the times that we need to fill And really that can be the loss of a loved one. That can be a very bad situation. That can be negative feedback. Any of those things could be considered a low point or a pit. And what we need to do is elevate those moments wherever we can. Certainly the pits require filling and elevation, but creating that elevation has to rise above the routine. You have to break the script, if you will. You have to defy folks' normal thinking. You can elevate powerful digital moments in three key ways, and we're going to revisit these throughout tonight's lecture. First is boosting sensory appeal. You can see this on apps like TikTok, where it's very exciting and visual. Raising the stakes, that is to say, raising people's awareness, giving them a deadline, giving them a call to action, political donations, calls for various action in society. Breaking the script is perhaps one of the most innovative and exciting ways to elevate a situation, changing the dynamic of things, changing the way individuals view the world around them and the opportunities that exist. So I want to step back for a second and return to one of the main topics of tonight's lecture, which is social media, and bring some context to our conversation. Social media elevation is really the key of social media persuasion. MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, held an event earlier this year where they discussed the digital economy, and in particular looked at the ways that digital social media impact democracies, economies, and public health globally. In particular, I was interested in a panel about Ukraine that talked about disinformation and, quote, Ukraine's second battlefield. This panel about Ukraine was moderated by a distinguished professor, Sinan Aral, of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who incidentally is the author of a great book called The Hype Machine, which will be referenced in tonight's lecture. To go in specifically about the Ukraine panel, it was quite interesting. It, of course, referred to the fact that Ukraine's information war with Russia goes back far beyond the 2014 illegal annexation of Crimea. It has been going on for a long time. In fact, US news analyst from CNBC, Richard Stengel, notes that there was a significant amount of disinformation about whether an invasion had actually occurred and various fake accusations about the invasion itself. He notes that 4/5 of the war is not kinetic, that is to say, not physical, but information. TikTok and Telegram, which I'm sure many of you are members of, are the primary social media battlefields in this information war with Russia. Telegram, of course, is Russia's most popular messaging tool and was created and owned by VK founders Nikolai and Pavel Durov. So when you look at the spread of information and disinformation across those social media networks, it really is because TikTok, any of these, Telegram, they are interconnected ecosystems that contribute to amplifying messages. Social media just amplifies for good or for bad. The same thing happens with any platform, from Meta to Twitter to LinkedIn. The more you hear something on a platform, the more likely you are to believe it. It's something called the mere exposure effect in communications theory. Some social media companies have attempted to stop this, to stop deep fakes, to stop misinformation about various vaccines from getting out, but it really does require legislation, requires government actions globally to begin to root out this problem. It requires great leadership. And the power of video content is incredible. You know, we had the honor of hosting President Zelensky here in the United States this week, where he met with President Biden and gave an address to a joint session of the United States Congress. President Zelensky is an outstanding communicator and understands the power of video. It creates a worldwide engaged audience that wants to help. However, even today, deep fakes persist on Telegram, on TikTok, or Douyin, whatever you want to call it, that harness video and twist it for misinformation and disinformation. When you look at what persuades an audience to share content, when you look at, for any social media platform, What is an effective way to persuade with social content? You have to ask the question at the beginning, what is in it for your audience? What would make them want to share this content? The social media must give the audience a reason to share the content. That is number one. Number two, you have to address two key emotional states. We talked about emotion already being a key part of creating persuasive digital moments, those peaks. So first we have to address doubt. What is doubt? Simply the absence of knowing. It's when we're concerned to click on a link, or we're concerned to share something on a platform because we don't know the author. We don't know where it came from. We all have different processes to help us figure that out. We go and look at profiles. We go and ask our friends. We usually call these heuristics. These are rules of thumb that we use to help us dispel that doubt or to make a decision. Likewise, the emotion of empathy is critically important. This is the starting point for trust from an audience to a content creator. It is understanding who we're communicating with and what is in it for them. Again, we don't want to make any assumptions about our audiences. We need to know what really makes them feel good and what makes them feel bad. So research on your audience is critical to test those assumptions and make content even more shareable. What is shared? What is talked about on social media? Well, there are 6 key things that you can think about, categories of content that are shared on social media. First, content with social currency. That's content that makes us look good because we know what's going on. We all like sharing things that make us look good. Second, triggers. We share stimuli that prompt us to think about related things. Donations, for example, to various charities for good causes. Emotions. When we care, we share. Things we are passionate and feel strongly about get shared. Public. If everyone else is doing it, I should do it too. Calls for political action, calls for ends to various types of hate. Those can have a cumulative effect for sharing. Practical value. Many individuals like to share recipes. Some individuals like to share health tips. Some individuals like to share various pieces of code they've developed, all kinds of sharing for practical purposes. And finally, information best travels when it is a story. Discrete pieces of information are great, but when you craft a narrative around what you're trying to say, it certainly improves what is known as the share proposition, that is, what is shared and talked about. That being said, social media companies do put their thumb on the scale. That is to say, they manipulate some of the stuff that is shared based on their algorithms. For example, we recently learned from the Facebook whistleblower testifying to the US Congress here in the United States, Frances Haugen, who was a former Facebook product manager, released thousands of pages of documents that indicated social media companies are aware that their algorithms privilege extreme content. That is to say, social media companies know that emotions will motivate their audiences to share. So they make sure audiences see the most emotionally charged content. Social media addiction is real, and this is a part of the problem. It is also an effective way of persuasion. So it's important to think about the ways social media platforms can address the abuse of these tools. There are 5 key ways that Sinan Aral from MIT suggests would be great ways to stop the spread of disinformation. First, labeling fake news. Some social media platforms have attempted to do that and demonstrate that what is being put out isn't necessarily the truth. Second, eliminating economic incentives. That is to say, money that can be raised simply by faking the presence of a charity, faking a good cause, and raising money. Helping audiences, helping societies understand misinformation and disinformation is also very important. Legislation too is important, but people have to understand what's out there. Algorithms need to be changed to root out false information. They shouldn't be privileging the most salacious information, the most emotionally charged information. They need to balance that with false information being rooted out. And finally, policies for platforms that are ethical, and promote social justice. It's important to consider ethics when talking about achieving that share proposition. Achieving a shared proposition in what I am teaching you tonight is an ethical practice. So how do we achieve that? First, we have to ask the question, how might this content give my audience some good credibility, some social currency, something that might be helpful to them? Does it play to a specific emotion, what I'm saying? And should I do that? Is that ethical? Is that a good idea? How can I use public support to demonstrate growing popularity? Is this something that if I could put out a video or put out an image, it would help me gain greater content sharing on my platform? And finally, crafting a narrative, rather than just putting out that content, putting out a video, putting out a story. Tell us the scene, tell us the situation. What was the time of day? What was going on around that situation? Narratives help content travel. Another key thing about persuasion, and it's a funny thing that applies outside of social media, it applies to most human activity, reciprocity. When you are given something, you give back in return, even if it's a small thing. If you've ever received a free sample from any kind of company or organization, it actually makes you more likely to purchase a product simply because you have received something and you want to give something back. That is human nature. So this is an important trigger for persuasion. And it's important to step back again for a second, take this away from everyday life and say, well, how does this apply to technology? How does this apply to life with computers? Computers are persuasive tools. Social media is a persuasive tool, but computers themselves are persuasive tools. Ironically, they were not designed to be persuasive tools. They were designed to do two things. First, to store information. Second, to perform calculations. Now, I'm terrible at math, so performing calculations is very challenging for me. And as I get older, my memory tends to go. So storing information gets harder and harder. Computers don't have that problem. They can store information and perform calculations for decades, in fact, at rates that no human could ever match anywhere. This is the method by which digital media are persuasive. It's important to think that way. Social media content is persuasive, but technology is also persuasive. Some technology is persuasive simply because it's novel. Using a new technology engenders a greater amount of trust. But how do we look at technology as persuasive? Well, thankfully, Professor B.J. Fogg from Stanford University has done that in terms of what he called a functional triad. In his book about persuasive technology, he illustrates the various roles played by computers and computer products from the perspective of user persuasion. This triad of the ways you can think about computers as persuasive tools or as persuasive actors is three modes. First, as a tool, a persuasive tool that increases capability. Social media certainly does that, allows us to communicate all over the world, receive messages, learn things everywhere all the time. Second, as a creative social actor. That is to say, as an individual, someone we operate with, an artificial intelligence, as a entity in and of itself, talked about as if it were a person. That happens with a lot of social media platforms. And then finally, the medium itself. This is where the content comes in. This is what we've spent most of our time tonight talking about so far, is the medium. But I want to talk about tools a bit more for the second half of tonight's lecture and give you some practical tools you can use if you want to create persuasive digital moments and persuasive content in digital social media or in your daily life. Now, what do I mean by persuasive tools? Well, these are interactive products designed to change an attitude or behavior. This is important to keep in mind. What we are trying to do with the use of these tools is to change a behavior. You may already have seen this looking at various aspects of your own social media platforms. You may have seen this in terms of various technologies that you use every day. I will probably be showing you a few examples on the next couple of slides. The tool is persuasive by making a target behavior easier to do, leading people through a process, or you can think about performing calculations or measurements that motivate. I imagine that as you think about these parts of what make up persuasive technology tools, you can begin to think about your own examples. So let me show you the 7 tools that you can use to create persuasive digital moments. Now, if you remember one slide from tonight's lecture, This is the slide, because each of these is a very important way of creating digital persuasive moments. Now, some of them you can do very easily. A few of them require significant resources. So some of them I don't expect many of you will use, but you may find value in thinking about them as you go about creating persuasive digital content. So first is reduction. Reduction is quite easy to understand. It's making a complex task simpler. We do this all the time. Shortcuts, making lists for ourselves. Even older people like me who take medication have to put it in little boxes so we remember to take it each day. Those are ways of reducing the mental load to make a task easier and therefore more desirable. What can you do when you're looking at a task that you want an audience to take? How do you get them to take that task and persuade them to do it? Well, first, by making it easier for them to do. That's one-click shopping. That's one-click donation. Reduce the number of steps. The other piece of a reduction strategy is to increase the perceived cost-benefit ratio. Now, what does that mean? That means focus on the benefits, not the features. What am I talking about? Often, and many of you might have worked in IT, and you may know this if you've worked really in any industry, often when we are trying to sell someone on a product, we talk a lot about the features. That is to say, the product does this, the product does that. What you should be doing is talking about the benefits to the customer. This will help you to do this. This will help you to do that in the context of their daily lives. That is how you can increase the perceived cost-benefit ratio for your content, which will increase the motivation of individuals to engage in whatever behavior you're trying to get them to do. So imagining for a moment that you were raising money for a good cause, you could do that and make it more persuasive with a reduction strategy by reducing the number of clicks to give that donation, making sure they understand the benefits of their donation, and making sure they understand that they will be recognized for that donation. That can increase the cost-benefit ratio significantly and lead to a greater adoption of the desired behavior, in this case, a donation. A very interesting tool that I want to spend a bit more time on here is tunneling technology. I'm going to show you ethical ways to use this technology, but I want to come back to the fact that there are unethical ways to use this technology. If you've ever heard the term down the rabbit hole, which is a reference to Alice in Wonderland, it means that somebody went through a series of content through a social media platform and down a long tunnel of content. You can be led down a long tunnel to any destination, as with technology. Using computing technology to guide users through a process or experience and persuading them along the way. It helps go into the unknown. Sometimes going into the unknown can be a very scary thing for humans. Having a pathway that is clearly put out for you is one way of reassuring humans that they're doing the right thing. There's some other aspects of tunneling technology that might not be as apparent. First, from an audience or user perspective, it's easier. You've reduced the stress on your audience. You've made it more persuasive, again, through a reduction. Second, it gives you control of the experience, which, in addition to being a great tool, you can imagine nefarious uses of this tunneling technology if you wanted to control user experiences in a very specific way. People do value consistency, so tunneling technology does provide that. It gives individuals a linear path through whatever content you're creating. It does eliminate the paradox of choice, and you could see this poor young man not sure which drink he wants. Often we are overwhelmed by the number of choices we have, and by tunneling our attention, technology and social media can move us in one direction or another. Again, many of you worked in IT, but even if you haven't, you are probably aware that most software installation works this way. When you go about installing a new piece of software on your smart device or on your computer, what are you doing? You're basically clicking a button, next, next, next. Rarely does a user make many decisions during an installation. Whatever is recommended is usually what individuals take, and what is customized is left for a very small number of users who actually understand what the power of that is. Tunneling technology can be a valuable way of guiding users through that installation process, which is completely foreign to them. It can also produce recommendations that can be extremely valuable when users are trying to understand what they're doing. We do have a desire to understand, and one of the key things that has to happen in tunneling technology is explanation. Humans need to understand innately. So a tunnel without any signage, without any lighting, without any sense of why we're moving down this tunnel can be frightening as well. So it's a balance between guiding the user with tunneling technology and making sure they're aware of their options and also how to quit. I'm going to come back to this in a second. There are some ethical concerns here. As I mentioned, giving the user an escape clause, a way out without any penalty, is important. If you don't see that in a tunneling situation, it is cause for concern. If you feel trapped or forced to do something by technology, for example, there are examples of abusive games where children think they're playing a game online and they get to a certain juncture in the game and they're told, oh, to get past here, you have to get credit card information from your mother or father. And they go off and get the credit card information and put it in thinking that they're playing a game, when in fact their personal information has been stolen. So ethical concerns, again, remain a focus for me when I present you these technologies. I want you to also think about the unethical ways these technologies can be used, and I'm sure many of you can think of examples of how this has happened. Another key persuasive technology is tailoring. And I don't mean the kind of tailoring you get in a suit. I mean the tailoring of a product or digital experience that provides information that is relevant to an audience. Now, it does imply a certain amount of customization. So not only does the content have to be extremely relevant and tailored to the audience that is receiving it. How do we do this? We use the right language, we use the right names, we call things by the right terms that are used locally, but we also expect a certain amount of change to the product, to the experience, to suit us in a tailored experience. The idea of having a tailored experience created for you is a very valuable way of getting users to engage with the content. You see this with personalized videos. You see this with e-cards that are sent. Why does this work? Well, people don't really get persuaded by generic things. You see this with luxury cars. You see this with specific brands of foods that, while they may be very similar to other products, there is a special tailored effect that makes the individual buyer feel special in some way, as if the tailoring of a Mercedes-Benz gives them a new identity. And it is also a way to distinguish themselves, that they use a specific kind of product or they have a certain kind of experience. It actually is enhanced automatically. We talked about peaks and valleys at the very beginning of this presentation, talking about those being real powerful moments, if you can create moments of elevation. Well, there are some cognitive preconditions about picking a product you like. If you pick a product you like, you're more likely to remember it just because you like it more. It also helps you with consistency. You perceive what's going on to be more credible, more relevant. And again, you have reduced the decision-making time and span. I don't need to make a conscious decision. I just pick my favorite customized experience, my brand that is for me. And of course, anything customized, really customized, down to the level of using individual names or locations of things, that has tremendous share proposition when you consider the locality of certain content. That being said, again, like tunneling technology and everything before it, there is the opportunity for ethical abuse of tailoring technology. Simply letting users know that it has been tailored for them gets them engaged. So if you're not tailoring it for them, you're cheating your users. Some sites will say, oh, we've customized this just for your business. And then they sell the exact same thing to another business, and they sell the same thing to the next business. That is unethical because there is no tailoring technology actually being put in place. It is simply a way to engage users and make them feel better about the product they're buying. You are cheating your users and potentially violating privacy concerns, because by creating examples that are not tailored, you may be showing one company or another, or one individual or another, information that doesn't belong to them. One that we're probably all very familiar with is suggestion technology. This is pretty pervasive with most streaming platforms, with most websites where you do any sort of purchasing. They love to tell us what we should do next. It is an intervention, but it isn't just telling us what we should do next. It's telling us what we should do next at the exact right time. So for example, using Amazon to purchase goods, at the checkout, at the conclusion when one pays, what comes up? A variety of additional products that you might consider purchasing, since you are in the right frame of mind to make a purchase and you are about to do so. How do you get people to accept your suggestions? This isn't just with technology. This is for anyone who's trying to suggest anything to another individual. They have to be in a good mood, first of all. Suggesting something to someone who is in a bad mood is not a good idea. Second, they have to be open to new ideas. If their mind is not closed, or their mind is closed to new ideas, it will be hard to suggest anything. You have to give them an opportunity to reflect or respond. Individuals don't like being barked at or told what to do. They like being able to digest what is being said to them and then communicate back their understanding. Feeling indebted, again, reciprocity, can be very valuable here as well. If, for example, you're suggesting something that might create that filled reciprocity. I gave you something, and by the way, I might like this in return. It can be very important. Where you make a suggestion also matters. Doing it in a busy place where they can't hear you is not a good idea. Doing suggesting when the user is in the middle of a process or in the middle of a webcast is not a good idea. And of course, making sure you understand their current state of mind, because things do happen. So for example, sending out coupons for a sale during an emergency situation is probably not a great time to make a suggestion. Suggestions can come in very small ways from technology, though. Some of you may have seen this kind of device before. If you haven't, let me explain it to you. This is something your car would pass by on the road in many places in the United States. And the box that you see there would be shooting a radar beam at your vehicle, which would bounce off of your vehicle back to the box. And if you were exceeding the local speed limit with your car, the light would flash. Now, interestingly enough, the thing I love about this suggestion technology is it doesn't tell you anything you don't already know. If you're driving down the street, you must know the speed limit. And you know the speed your vehicle is going if you look down at the instruments. All this suggestion technology is doing is confirming the information you already have and creating an alert in the form of a flashing light. Just by doing that, the suggested behavior, shaping the complex behavior of slowing a car down, can be done with something as simple as a flashing light. That's the power of suggestion technology. We actually like suggestion technology so much that we have begun to integrate it into our daily lives. Well, what does that mean? Self-monitoring technology. Many of us wear devices that measure our heart rate, how many steps we've taken. Some of our smart devices do that. Some folks have a Fitbit or a smart watch. But even other individuals, older individuals who wear a pacemaker or any other device required for their health, a tool that allows you to become more self-aware of what is going on for you. Self-awareness or awareness of any situation is a powerful tool in creating persuasive moments that will be shared. But again, providing ongoing information is difficult. If you're going to be in a situation where you're using a live feed of self-monitoring technology, it has to be information that's valuable. So in the case of a human being looking at their health, of course, physical state, location, maybe their blood pressure would be things that they're interested in. You can see some of the other examples. Now, when we're monitored, and it isn't because we want to monitor ourselves, it's when someone else is monitoring us. That is surveillance. And we're all familiar with surveillance. It's when one party monitors another closely. It is a very powerful persuasive tool. Now, it is not one that I expect many of you to be implementing yourselves through digital social media. It's important to understand how surveillance works, though, as a persuasive tool. While it does have a power, it can not work as well as you might think. Certainly, it can get employees to do things right. Parents can monitor their kids with small devices. Governments certainly monitor the activities of the citizenry. And social media does monitor every single thing you do. They collect all kinds of data about what you're doing. But the psychological impacts of surveillance are really what I wanted to focus on. People are more likely to comply. They're more likely to adhere to rules, and they're more likely to meet expectations when they are surveilled. And surveillance allows really complex behaviors to change rapidly. That being said, it is public acceptance without private acceptance. It is public compliance without individuals feeling like it's the right thing to do. They just know they're being watched. Now, how can surveillance be used as a tool? Well, it has to be overt. That is to say, it has to be clear you're being looked at. The only way surveillance is persuasive if it's overt, is if you're clearly aware you're being watched. Now, there are flaws in this type of surveillance technology. For example, Amazon and their facial identification technology often gets the race or gender of certain individuals wrong. So there's a long way to go in actually finding surveillance technology that can influence behavior by understanding what's going on in a given moment through machine learning. But certainly the presence of a camera or two changes human behavior very quickly. One more before we get to the close of tonight's lecture. Again, something I don't expect most of you to do, operant conditioning. Conditioning, of course, psychological principle discovered by Ivan Pavlov. Of course, the idea of ringing a bell and causing a dog to salivate means that a certain stimulus causes a desired behavior. This is something that has nefarious implications. It sounds like brainwashing or some sort of interrogation technique, but I'll give you a very simple example that's likely relevant to many of your daily lives. That is gaming. The reinforcement of a specific target behavior, getting individuals to shape complex behaviors. Gaming is a computerized system that does exactly that through the principles of operant conditioning. So when you think about gaming, I want you to make sure you consider that a good game makes you play forever. And it's through visuals, sounds, excitement, rewarding you with new armor, credits, a new spaceship, whatever it is. Designers are working to keep you engaged. And in many cases, they've conditioned their audience to go through very complex series of behaviors to remain engaged. So, all that being said, creating persuasive digital moments is about shaping complex behaviors. What we need to do with these 7 tools that I've given you is create gentle interventions. That is to say, the less invasive the intervention with one of these tools, the more likely you're going to create a persuasive digital moment. Certainly that will be shared on social media. In many cases, it may require one or more of the tools that I've offered you tonight to create a truly persuasive digital moment that shapes complex behaviors in your audience. These are things you need to try by trial and error or experimentation in many cases, but you can produce incredible results. For example, when you think about shaping behavior, you are reinforcing behavior through digital moments or moments in reality. This is how dolphins are trained at SeaWorld to jump through hoops and do tricks. But this can also be applied to your everyday life, just at work or in what you're doing, emails between workers, sharing documents, even scheduling appointments can be persuasive digital moments if you can see them the right way. I'll leave you with a quote from Chip and Dan Heath, who are the authors of the book, The Power of Moments, which I encourage you to take a look at if you are interested in tonight's lecture. Once you realize how important moments can be, it's easy to spot opportunities to shape them. I want to thank you for your attention and turn things over to question and answer. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ray, for such an exciting lecture. I think I see we have few questions and they are in the chat.
Sure, a few of the questions. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Olga.
You can, I think we have 3.
Yes, I see them.
First, yeah, you see.
So I see 3 questions. First, this is a great question. What is the easiest, cheapest, and most effective persuasive tool, in my opinion? Great question. I think it is probably a combination of suggestion technology and tailoring technology. Those two together. I think it's easy with technology today, and even with individual interactions, to create a tailored experience based on geolocation, based on language, based on a number of things that are available through cookies and very, very cheap things. Suggesting technology, I think, is more broadly applied, and you can think about it in terms of just finding the right time to suggest something. You don't need fancy technology to do that. You just need the right time. It's what the ancient Greeks called kairos, which is finding the opportune moment. So suggestion technology can just be suggesting at the right time. And I would say that's probably the most cost-effective of the tools, if you can think about it that way. Great question. Next question here. What is the most effective tool of persuasion to attract donations, for example, for a charitable organization? That's terrific. Another great question. I would go back again to the idea of reciprocity and trying to help individuals understand that what they are doing has a direct benefit and they receive something in return. For many charitable organizations, that can be something very straightforward. That can be a thank you. That can be a picture. That can be a narrative. That reciprocity is incredibly valuable in helping secure additional donations from existing donors. To get new donors engaged, again, I would think about suggestion technology. At the right moment, asking for a donation about the right topic is extremely valuable. You see this done, unfortunately, by some unethical bad actors out there, and it's known as trend jacking. That is to say, when a charitable organization is reaching out to collect money for a good cause, and another individual who wants to make a profit or is raising money for some other cause will claim to be a part of that charitable effort. So I would say that, again, I think suggestion technology is a key one there, but also reciprocity in terms of giving something back to a donor, or even alluding that something will be given back, even a small token of appreciation. It's very valuable. Great questions here. Let's see here, continuing down. Could you please share several examples of effective digital persuasion which looks special to me? Perhaps some unexpected or counterintuitive things which impressed me. What an extraordinary question. Wow. I might have to think about that one a little bit. I will share that I often encounter examples of effective digital persuasion in opinion pieces I read in the news media here in the United States. I try to expose myself to both what would be considered conservative and more progressive media. And I think in editorials, great great persuasive arguments are made. So I would use this as an argument to say the power of written word is still important. Video is certainly the most persuasive medium that is out there. But I think writing articles, posting thoughts, creating thought leadership, just by putting out your ideas and making them public by posting them on social media is a great way of finding an audience, potentially counterintuitive. I'm aware of somebody who went through a terrible experience recently, and because of that experience, they wanted to share with their local community what they had gone through. And they immediately received a level of support they didn't expect from the community because they sympathized with their experience. So that can be the unexpected really piece of this. I think if you give individuals the chance to surprise you, you make a bold, persuasive statement, the audience is there. And if they have access to the content, you will see a share proposition rise. Another great question I see here, and at the conclusion of this presentation, I do have the whole reading list, but a couple of books that I would recommend for anyone who is interested in this topic. A number of excellent pieces of literature are out there for those who are curious. First, many of the topics I covered in the second half of the lecture are from a book called Persuasive Technology. That is by an author named B.J. Fogg, F-O-G-G. And that book can be found online many places. It is about 20 years old, but it has a lot of great concepts in it. Another book, if you're more interested in something that isn't a textbook and more of a fun book that can help you understand the world differently, I highly recommend The Design of Everyday Things by a design psychologist named Donald Norman. This is an excellent book that will get you to see products and communication in some very different ways that can help with this topic as well. Those are my two top picks, I think, but also there's some great more recent books on the list that are real bestsellers. First of all, The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, who I quoted at the end of this lecture. The Power of Moments is a great way to really understand what I talked about at the start of the lecture, that is, what moments are and how we can shape them. And then also The Hype Machine, which I quoted briefly in this presentation, again by Professor Sinan Aral from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's a long reading list, but those are the ones I would recommend for anyone interested in learning more about these topics. And I think I have completed questions in the chat.
Ray, sorry.
No, yeah.
We have 2 more questions in Q&A session. Please check. Just
I got them.
Chat. Yeah.
I got them. Thank you, Olga. I appreciate that.
If you could please answer.
Of course. So, sure, this is an excellent question. Should digital persuasion be classified as an element of propaganda? Thank you. Thank you for thanking me. I would say yes. I would say there are definite similarities between what we have talked about tonight and the characteristics of propaganda. Certainly disinformation and misinformation can take advantage of all of the tools that I've shared with you tonight, and also do take advantage of all of those tools. And you only need look on Telegram and TikTok to find some examples. So yes, certainly can be used for good or for evil. And propaganda would be the unethical side, I think, of what we've talked about tonight. So another question. Hello. It was interesting for me to understand the differences between those types of persuasive technologies. Thank you. I have a question. If we look at those types of technologies, which one of them is mostly used nowadays to guide the community through life to help them the most? Excellent question. Tunneling technology. Absolutely. Tunneling technology is the way that users and audiences are guided to make decisions in an uncertain world. It goes without saying that we all live in uncertain times, and certainly in Ukraine, that is the case for all of you. Many of you are in situations right now that are beyond my imagination. And unfortunately, that means a lack of direction sometimes. So clear tunneling technology that helps individuals get to a place that they need to be, again, ethically used, is a very valuable technique nowadays. Just as with a software installation, to get individuals to make a choice. An example of this that I would share is globally the efforts to get large numbers of the population vaccinated against COVID-19, which is still a big problem in many countries. And it has been a challenge to get individuals to get vaccinated for a variety of reasons, some of which are misinformation. So giving them the opportunity to get engaged with an organization that can help them get vaccinated, and then tunneling their ability towards making that decision. Where are you located? Where is the nearest clinic? When can you set up an appointment? Okay, you have an appointment. Taking them through that process helps dispel some of the fear about actually becoming vaccinated. So I would say nowadays, tunneling technology, for good or for bad, is one of the most prevalent things out there to help individuals make decisions when we may not be sure what the right decision is today. Let's see if there are other questions here. I see another question. Oh, thank you for the end. Thank you for your question. That was a wonderful question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ray, for your insights, for your points of view and your answers. I think we had a very interesting and comprehensive discussion. And of course, we are very glad to see you on your next lectures. And today as well, I would like on behalf of our team to wish you and all the participants Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And dear participants, may your holidays be peaceful, full of light, hot water and heating, and New Year will bring us long-awaited victory and prosperity. And we expect all of you next year on our platform. We prepare a very interesting educational content with new outstanding contributors and new lectures. So please stay safe and healthy and see you next year. Thank you very much, Raymond. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.